What happened to the good-looking, ultra-popular kids that had it all in high school? Story 1. The most popular girl in my graduating class, and I do mean most popular, she made an effort to make friends with literally everyone. Head cheerleader, is now the head director at the local homeless shelter. She never married, has no kids, 37, still an absolute babe. Story 2. The good-looking, ultra-popular kids in my high school went to good schools, got good jobs, and became really successful adults. One became a doctor, one became a union president, one became a toy exec, and married an exec on a streaming platform. One was a professional football player for a few years. 30 years on, they're still good-looking and charismatic. Not high school, but a kid I was in grade school with became a famous actor with a beloved TV role. He was a really nice kid on top of being absurdly good-looking and very popular. We went to different high schools, but I ran into him occasionally, and he very much fit the thread. Edit. I never said any of these kids were rich. I'm not sure where you guys got that idea, but it's coming up enough I wanted to address it here. A long time ago, there was a hill in my hometown where all the rich people lived. They seceded from the city and made their own city so their taxes wouldn't be used to help the poors. Rich kids didn't go to my high school. Story 3. I'm in my early 30s now, and I can't even remember off the top of my head what the good-looking, ultra-popular kids at my high school were named. If I had to guess, they probably got good jobs and have successful lives, but those people had so little impact on my life that I couldn't begin to care less. Story 4. I'm in my early 30s now, and I can't even remember off the top of my head what the good-looking, ultra-popular kids at my high school were named. If I had to guess, they probably got good jobs and have successful lives, but those people had so little impact on my life that I couldn't begin to care less. Story 5 from my class. One became a real estate agent but got caught embezzling money. One is a successful chef with his own restaurant, and another one turned into a fitness influencer with a huge following. As for the girls, one is a nurse, another is a lawyer, and one became an artist with her own gallery. It's wild how life takes different turns. Story 6. We've got a 50-year reunion coming up this summer. In retrospect, I wish I would have talked to way more of my fellow classmates about their families, their interests, whatever. In many respects, I feel like I barely knew them and was too busy keeping my own head above water. I wonder about their backstories and how life went for them. I guess that's what reunions are for. Story 7. After graduation, no one in the real world gave a crap about who they were or what they did in high school. No one. Also, having attended a couple class reunions now, I've observed that most of the popular guys are now overweight and balding. The popular girls are no longer thin and seem to have older-looking faces than the nerd girls. Back in high school, I never would have believed this would happen to them, but it has. Story 8. This girl was super popular since primary school. Really smart too, straight-A student, but also, she got all the jock boyfriends. I don't know how popular she was in university, but she went overseas, came back with a law degree, and then started her line of couture handbags. She was really living the high life, appearing in fashion magazines, runways, VVIP parties, brushing shoulders with royalties, etc. Suddenly she vanished from social media for about a year. Turns out she went to a rehab, a very fancy one by the beach. Then she started posting weird things on her Facebook, things that don't make sense. Then turns out she has bipolar disorder. Now, she still lives with her mom. Story 9. Most of them were good-looking and ultra-popular because they came from stable, if not affluent, financial backgrounds. They got the acne treatments they needed, were able to buy nice clothes, were much more experienced navigating social situations, etc. So, plenty of them just kept that momentum going and had good, successful college experiences and entered successful careers. Anecdotally, when I've met these people now, I always get this weird intuition like they're not fully self-aware. Plenty of others peaked in high school, though, and their lives went downhill afterward, and plenty of them lived privileged lives that self-destructed after a point. There are some particular karmic situations I've seen. I don't know. Everything happens to everyone. I was at my lowest point ever in high school, so I get to experience life as only getting better from there. Story 10. I lived in a town known for its oil refineries and chemical plants. Most of the popular kids I knew got hooked up right out of high school with good jobs at the plants, and are now in high-level management positions making high six figures. Some of them went to college and are entrepreneurs for various things, like one dude has his own fitness supplements and another guy has a marketing consultancy. Nearly all of the popular girls left Houston and went to college in Dallas. I don't know what they went for. They are now all in real estate or are housewives, and the majority of them married much older men. Several of them have been grandmas since they were around 30. Story 11. One looks exactly the same and is a teacher married to a doctor. They have a huge house in the city and 4 kids. She was just a pretty, smart, socially capable but not aggressively popular girl with professional parents and became a similarly respectable adult. I'd like to feel bitter about it, but I can't. If I were a successful doctor who could have his pick of women, I'd marry her too. One became a teacher at our high school. He was funny and class president, and everyone legitimately liked him. I guess it's kind of strange he found his place where he was successful as a kid and just stayed there, but I think his genuine love for the place probably adds to his appeal to the kids. Story 12. In my high school, the popular kids were the ones who participated in theater and music and such, because it was just that kind of place. As such, the good-looking, ultra-popular kids at my high school grew up to be popular, good-looking music, film, and television stars. A couple are very well-known names in film. One is a popular stand-up comic and is on a popular TV show. Another is an incredibly popular DJ in Southeast Asia. A couple went on to be renowned orchestral performers. One of my best friends growing up has been a big name in local live theater for decades, so that kind of thing. Story 13. We had a very large school, and I was considered popular in the way more people knew me than I knew them, and I looked really good. I'm currently working on losing weight because after a medical event I got super into weed and snowballed into inactivity and weight gain. Because so much of my confidence hinged on my looks back in the day, I became a lot more introverted. My circle is a lot smaller now and I've been domesticated from my wilder ways. I'm also a lot nicer after growing up a bit, almost detrimentally so. I didn't finish college because at the time, ADHD was just considered attention deficit, ADHD paralysis, and other symptoms weren't known to be attributed to that, so it's struggling with the independence of not having supervision and not knowing it was due to ADHD. I didn't know how to manage it and just thought it was a personality defect, so I didn't do all my coursework. Turns out I'm pretty good at sales, and have reached a fairly high-level role as an individual contributor in software sales. I don't have an engineering brain, but I just kind of followed the money. Story 14, 3 of them became chiropractors in my area. Nothing against the dudes, but I laugh hard every time I see an online advertisement from one of them that's local. His business name references alchemy, which just is wicked amusing given the snake oil reputation chiropractors have. Story 15. The good-looking starting QB at our Texas high school went to a D1 college on a baseball scholarship and played there all 4 years, but didn't go pro. He's an insurance salesman. He was a mostly likable guy that would give most people the time of day. His cunt of a girlfriend in high school followed him to college, they got married, and now she looks 10 years older than him because of her botched plastic surgery. Story 16. Some of them crashed and burned after high school. I see them working odd jobs around town. Feels good. Most of the rest settled down and married what seems like very kind and loving partners and have very nice families. They all were absolute assholes to me in high school, for no real reason other than the joy bullies get from bullying, so I've always wanted to just lay that out for their partners to see what they say. One of them is a coworker, and I'm sure I'll bring up how much of an ass her husband was at the wrong time. Bullying kids in a small town leaves you with really awkward relationships as an adult when everyone still knows each other and your kids play together and stuff. I love making it awkward. Story 17. She got married quite young, then drifted away from her friends. At school, she always took herself a bit seriously, 13 going on 30. The popular guy got nowhere, bounced from being a trainee to being a trainee somewhere else, continuously. Tried to open a barber's with no experience in the most expensive part of my city, consequently failed. Last I heard, he was leeching off of some woman whilst being a trainee carpet fitter. Story 18. She was a wonderful person. She literally was liked by nearly everyone. I wasn't in the same crowd as her. Shortly after graduation, she was in an accident that wasn't her fault, lost the use of her legs, and only was awarded a couple of $100,000 for something so life-altering. But somehow she always had a good attitude. I wish I had that strength now she had then. Story 19. Most of them are now wealthy and married expecting kids. Then again, I lived in small, wealthy white town in Connecticut. It's surreal seeing some of these kids I remember now married and or having kids at 29, 30 when I'm still working a fucking job as a cook. Guess it pays to have rich parents who can network for you. I remember some of these kids getting expensive cars the second they got their driver's permit. Meanwhile, my dad just handed me the car keys to his shitty wagon and let me borrow it when he didn't need it. Asterisk sigh, asterisk. The thing with these movies where the popular kid gets his comeuppance and or is a loser years later hardly ever actually happens. 9/10, They go on to be successful because they have connections from their family, rich. Story 20. I got voted most popular at my high school. Prom king, captain of the football team type stuff. My B8th the grade summer, the best advice I ever received from my older sister was to be nice to everyone when you start high school. Geeks, loners, punkers, jocks, band kids. I was nice to all of them. I'm 38 now, and people from high school put on their best face when they see me because I treated them like a friend. My life is really good because I was kind. Story 21. Kid 2 grades older than me was a legitimate elite athlete. Tall, blonde, great leader, popular, insane physical ability. I played soccer with him, and even though he wasn't the most skilled, his 40 vert, speed, and 6'3" frame made up for a lot. He played basketball too and excelled, but his real sport was baseball. I'm not familiar with his stats, but he was heavily scouted by the MLB. He ended up getting drafted straight out of high school and put in the farm system. Scouts were calling him a top 20 prospect in all of baseball. Then, when he was 19, he had sudden blindness/loss of sensation and went in immediately for brain surgery where they found a cavernous malformation near his brainstem. He spent the next 2 years rehabbing and I think actually made it back to some minor league games. But then the tumor reemerged, and he had to have another surgery. He retired from baseball at 22. He's had 20-plus brain surgeries in the past 13 years and wears the scars of it. His right side is completely numb. He has double vision because one of his eyes are locked in place, and half of his face is frozen. Today, he's doing really well, all things considered. He coached baseball at our high school, he's an assistant coach in college, and he's actually a college student RN. He's married and had a kid a few years back. His story is surreal. Like the most promising kid got robbed for no reason but still finds a way to persevere and inspire everyone. Story 22. My high school was so big, with many very low-income kids. I dropped out at the end of my freshman year. The coolest kids were in gangs, and we didn't hang out for a range of reasons, despite a shared appreciation for spliffs at that time. The valedictorian struggled to achieve as an adult. I remember being surprised pre-pandemic by how less successful many of the kids I went to middle and high school with ended up seeming as full-fledged mid-30s adults. I was amongst the very low-income set. I also ended up earning a master's from a fancy school and living in different parts of the country world. There's so many ways to define success, and not hanging out with these people on a daily basis, or even annually, it's hard to say. But I was surprised by how many of my peers were still living in our hometown, now a hip and expensive city, and by how many were hairdressers. I assumed many or most of the kids who were in the public school honors classes with me, and who also did not drop out, would have had more professional success. More traditional routes to achievement in that realm, probably more visible entrepreneurship. I am in a moment of valuing togetherness with my family more than anything. Perhaps I was a late bloomer in this way. The only bum part of being a high school dropout is that you don't get to reunionize with anyone. Story 23. Well, not to rest on my laurels, but I was voted most popular, most handsome, and Mr. X's school from a relatively large HS. What happened to me? College was a blur. I partied a lot. Was a loser, basically. After 5 years of not progressing, I went from being the most extrovert in the room to extremely introverted over the realization of lost time and failure to meet perceived expectations. I met a beautiful girl in my late 20s who cleaned me up and saw potential, and I graduated, became folk-ued, and I live a small, quiet life in a smaller town. Work a stable job, married with a couple kids, no harrowing stories of loss or fortune for that matter. I'm quite happy and feel joy when I wake every morning. Story 24. I don't know if we had anyone that extreme. Was a semi-shut-in during my school days, so I didn't really know who belonged to which clique or any of the high school drama stuff even at the time. But of the few I know, I think most of the people I went to school with seem to be doing pretty well for themselves, but I'm not in contact with more than a handful of people from my school days, and we don't do things like class reunions as far as I'm aware, so I don't know for most of them. Except one who died in their 20s. Story 25. I went to a school where most of the good-looking and popular kids were also the smart kids, with the exception of a few athletes and cheerleaders. It's been some decades now. At my first class reunion, it was remarkable to see how none of the high school cliques mattered anymore. But now it's mind-blowing to see that the ones from my class who are now rich as hell weren't popular or at the top of the class. I mean, the top folks from school became doctors or professors, but it's the other folks flying under the radar who now have mega money. Story 26. I grew up in a small Midwestern town where a lot of the good-looking, very popular people were also, mostly, Straight-laced Christian kids who spent their free time doing activities with the local Youth for Christ organization or at their church. Most of them turned out okay, not exceptional but fine. Stable jobs, married, kids if they want them. The most wealthy, influential family in town happened to be Mormon, not a lot of those in our area, and they churned out popular, good-looking kids like it was their job. One was in my grade, appears that she is doing well, has a career, and also 3 kids, living the Mormon dream. One girl who became a popular party girl before HS was even over is living St. Home with a job her parents gave her, and an alcohol problem. Story 27. The ultra-popular girl married into a wealthy family, got her bachelor's degree, had 3 kids, and built a very lovely life. She now has breast cancer and is fighting very hard for her life and family. I wish her nothing but the best and hope she recovers quickly. She was popular because she was super beautiful and also incredibly kind and smart. She always made everyone feel listened to. Story 28. Kid literally could have been a model for a surfer magazine. He was wealthy, long blonde hair, blue eyes, all the girls wanted him, and rumors were that he was related to Paris Hilton. He actually was a decent person for the time I knew him. Seemed like a nice kid and I never saw him treat anyone badly. I was recently looking through the police blotter for my old city. If you haven't done this, it's a great pastime when bored lol you find out that a lot of people you know get arrested, and saw a familiar face. I wasn't sure if it was him because the long hair was gone and he now has face tats. He has a rap sheet a mile long, like 15 plus arrests ranging from burglary to assault and possession of meth. Looked him up on FB and dude is apparently a Crip gang member even though when I knew him he was a suburban skater surfer kid. Email. Meth is a hell of a drug. Story 29. Many people peak early. Most have aged badly and are living very average lives not far to where they grew up. Some even still live with their parents / inherited their family homes. This is a stark reminder that most people are average and will accomplish nothing more than living a street away, above average, or in the very same house they grew up in, average to below average. Exceptional people continue to do well, look better than their peers, the gap widens with each passing year, and mental issues do not exist since they are educated enough to prioritize and execute on what needs to be done. Story 30. In my high school, the ultra-good-looking kid weren't the ultra-popular ones. So far, the ultra-popular ones that everyone loved are either doctors, dentists, or biochemists. One of them, unfortunately, died in mysterious circumstances. Lots of people got really sad. His GF was obviously gutted, and it took her a long time to move on. She's now a nurse and will become a specialist. The super good-looking ones, one of them is my best friend. She's still gorgeous. She's about to become a pharmaceutical engineer. She's super smart, but has some existential issues. Another one is a data analyst, also really smart. However, she's depressed and horny.